What's going on with Bitcoin's price drop recently? We went from 69,000 under 58,000. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's just, it's just the volatility. It's, we talked about the derivatives, and we talked about, I think the dollar against these other basket of foreign currencies is strengthening. So if you're looking at like the DXY, DXY, it's a dollar currency index against a bunch of other fiats. And a good argument is like, yeah, it doesn't really matter because all fiats are devaluing. But with the dollar as a world reserve currency, there is kind of basically everybody's implicitly short the dollar. And there's so much dollar debt out there. And so when you see the dollar strengthening against other fiats, regardless if CPI inflation or the money supply is expanding in the U.S., which it is, CPI at 6%, 30-year highs, regardless of that, if the dollar is tightening against other foreign currencies, financial conditions are tightening, and so that's kind of when we see, we haven't seen it really yet in legacy markets, but this is kind of what leads to 2008 events, March 2020 events. I don't think we see a spike that, with that much magnitude or that dramatic, but, it could potentially be a catalyst for some sort of risk off. And I think Bitcoin is, as a macro asset, is reacting to that in a way.
And when you think about what we're watching, Jerome Powell was just renominated or is going to be renominated as the Fed Reserve chairman. Is that just a continuation and pretty bullish in terms of we're going to continue to see interest rate manipulation, quantitative easing, asset prices will go to the moon? Or do you think that there's the possibility that even though we have the same person running the Federal Reserve, there may actually be some difference in the policies that they implement?
Yeah, I think it's more of the same. I honestly don't even think Powell or anyone else really matters. I don't know what he's doing. Why aren't you just retiring and going on an island somewhere? That I don't understand, but they really don't have a choice, and they're going to go up there and jawbone and pretend that they're switching some sort of policy. But even now, like tightening or tapering is really just decreasing the rate of how fast they're expanding the balance sheet. It's not even tapering in the sense of what it used to be in a decade ago. So more of the same. Rates can't rise; they have to remain negative in real terms, or else the whole system implodes. And they won't say that, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And then when you think about Bitcoin, we were talking earlier, the number of Bitcoin addresses with at least 0.01 Bitcoin in the balance hit an all-time high over 9.2 million, now about 9.245 million. How do you look at something like that in terms of the overall picture? We estimate that it's either new people coming in or just more and more people stacking sats and kind of dollar cost averaging. But is that an important metric to you, or is it less important?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of the trend over the last decade, is that this thing is just becoming distributed in more and more hands. And while addresses isn't a perfect measure, because I can have 100 different UTXOs all in different addresses, and honestly, for privacy best practices, that's optimal. And so you can't really see that it's one entity that has multiple UTXOs, but essentially starting with Satoshi and then with Hal Finney, and then 2, 3, and now millions of people. Soon to be billions of people all holding Bitcoin. It's just basically becoming more and more distributed, and there's less sats per person to go around. And so, that trend, 0.1 Bitcoin per, address, 1 Bitcoin per address, I kind of expect that to just continue to hockey stick up and to the right.
Got it. And then what general thoughts when you saw the announcement?
I think it's definitely optimistic, and it's definitely exciting. Constructing a city from scratch is definitely ambitious. We'll see how that goes, but I think the Bitcoin-backed bonds and kind of a bond Bitcoin structure is actually pretty. It's pretty interesting in terms of kind of a fixed income from a fixed income standpoint. I don't want 6.5% yields, and for the most part, I probably would just buy Bitcoin. But for a lot of these, maybe. If you're a fund manager, I don't know if they're going to be allowed to allocate to this institutional capital, but I know there are a lot of Bitcoiners that would, fork over some money to secure citizenship, secure some upside with Bitcoin, and kind of just fund something that they believe in. And it's really exciting just from a bigger picture standpoint, like the jurisdictional arbitrage, the kind of sovereign individual thesis where nations, where governments are competing for citizens and competing for capital. Kind of the opposite trend that we've seen, where governments are trying to almost trap their citizens, trap the capital. It's exciting, and I think that's what Bitcoin kind of brings to the world. And seeing these first dominoes fall is really, really exciting.
Yeah, what's fascinating about it is if there are institutions that want to buy bonds, but they can't. And so this is a way for, or I'm sorry, they have to buy bonds. They can't buy Bitcoin. This is a way for them to buy bonds, but get some underlying Bitcoin exposure, very similar to a bunch of folks who were allocating to MicroStrategy and their unsecured notes, right? You could basically get some exposure there, or you could buy MicroStrategy stock and get some indirect exposure to Bitcoin, almost like this tracking stock for a period of time. Is your thought process that like that's really who's going to be buying this, or do you think it's going to be Bitcoiners? Like, do you think it will be more folks that understand Bitcoin and they want to see this happen, and therefore they'll go ahead and they'll buy this, even though they could buy Bitcoin if they wanted to?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a mix of both. I mean, I haven't I've talked with some people, but haven't had too many high level discussions on this. More just kind of gauging the sentiment on Twitter and reading the official kind of Blockstream posts and what Bukele is saying. But I think from a kind of like a securitization standpoint and like a digital asset standpoint, I think maybe that's a little overhyped when people say just throw around the word digital asset. Like it's kind of a buzzword in a way, but I think like kind of being on native Bitcoin rails with the Liquid network and what it's I think they're teaming up with Bitfinex. I think these notes will probably be trading just like a another crypto asset, and so that's kind of from a finance or econ lens. It's exciting to see all this kind of unfold because this sort of innovation, and maybe I hope it'll be somewhat seamless in the sense that these things are just trading 24/7 365 like these other assets. That's exciting, and the ability to kind of custody these notes and have maybe a Bitcoin income stream is pretty cool.